Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at one of the most important authors on the planet currently, Matt Powers, and his groundbreaking work in his brand new best-selling book, 5 stars, Regenerative Soil, The Science and Solutions. We were just chit-chatting, and he's working on the 16-week in-depth course for many of you that got involved with the crowdfunding. How you doing, Matt? It's good to see you.
I'm doing really well, and it's really exciting, like you said, to be back with you. I mean, we did the Kickstarter. It was a lot of your people that made that go, and now to be at that final part of it is like full circle. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, your book is gorgeous. When it arrived months ago, it was like I just wanted to walk around and hold it. And many other people have the same feeling with this type of textbook and the size of it and the amount of information. And it's extremely colorful and enjoyable to read very in-depth scientific topics. So excellent job on the production of the book. Now, what is some of the reactions you've got?
Well, I went as hard as I could bring it. I went as deep as I could go. And it was really wild to have co-creator of permaculture, David Holmgren, say this is what it's going to use from now on, from the garden to the paddock, for farmers and ranches. And then to have like professors that are just discovering like new aspects of roots. Like roots are literally eating microbes. They're not vegans, people. The roots are not vegans. The plants are not vegans. They are eating microbes alive. And to have people like that who just discovered this and they're sharing it with the world reach out and not only support the book, but dive in and give me some insider information. It's just been a thrill. I just feel like amazingly lucky and blessed to be here right now. I mean, when we started this, I thought I knew what I was going to write about, and I did, but then it was like opening a door into a completely different, not room, it's like a Narnia thing where you open the door and you're like, holy cow, there's a world. and it just started this huge journey for me. I never thought I would go as deep as I went, and a lot of the reviewers I started off with, like midway through, were like, well, Matt, I didn't think you would go to this depth. I'm learning, and it became this, it was, 2020, that lockdown, nothing else to do, but really get down to the brass tacks of how the linchpin of all life on Earth really works and how it influences not just plant health, but all animal health. So, we were talking about science and right before we hopped on, and how frustrating it is to see what goes on popularly, and in the mainstream media with science and stuff because of the work that you and I do. And with this book, I discovered it as part of the study, as part of meeting so many of these cutting edge experts, a completely other side to our, not just our health and plant health but to the soil, to all things. And that's redox. That's the bioelectrical side of life that folks are measuring. And if you look very closely at it, redox, reduction, oxidation, and you're like, oh, oxidation, that's bad. I remember something about something being oxidized is bad. But flip it. Antioxidant. There's our superfoods. There's our super plants. It goes all the way through. This measurement of oxidation versus reduction, which would be the antioxidants that would be reduced. It's a chemistry term, reduction, it just means more energy. So I discovered in this process of doing the biology, Elaine Ingham, the composting,
Queen.
doing the Korean natural farming, all of that, all of it, sumptuous, beautiful. But in that process, I discovered there's a completely other side to that world. And it explains what they're doing better. So I've been able to, with this book, not just link the biology, Elaine Ingham world and the Korean natural farming world, but put the chemistry formulas to things, put it in the actual cycles of nature, so we know where, hey, this is where we hop in and make a difference. And this is where we don't mess it up. You know what I mean? And so I made it super visual. The reality is, for me, unless it's visual, I really don't understand it in a functional, utilitarian, pragmatic way. It has to be micro to macro. It has to be real to be pragmatic. So it was a wild adventure writing it, and I thank you and I thank many of your audience members for helping me take that journey and make so many discoveries.
Well, awesome. I'm really pleased and delighted for your success. But now let's talk about this. So you've written one of the most comprehensive books on permaculture science, in the sense of from top down, and relating it to human health and even at the energetic levels. Okay. And so we're actually getting to a really high resolution picture of how these biodiverse systems are actually operating, which is fantastic. But at the same time, we're living in a world where the huge corporations are shifting us away from all of this information, and they're trying to actually push the entire population into eating lab manufactured meat and other things like Soylent Greens, which has nothing to do with this. So, and the whole world is moving in that direction. What is your take on that? Yeah. Well, that's what I think.
It's absolutely despicable. I mean, they are rewriting human history. They're rewriting natural history. They're rewriting science to fit a narrative that, if anyone does any research on, it just starts falling apart. Just the fundamentals of the way that elements behave in the environment. Just the fundamental way that fungi exhales. I mean, it is so infuriating. You know what it's like? It's like when you're working with that like snotty little 10-year-old who literally exaggerates the things that you're saying to do it the wrong way, and you're like, no, rake it. I'll rake it. And you're like, no. There's cherry picking of data. There's isolation and siloing of data, and what they're doing is running with it to an extreme, so that people aren't even able to, it's like almost hard to talk to them, because they're in complete fantasy land. It's like, you can't have nature without animals. You can't, human health, the human gut and biome, there's so many of us that can't transfer the plant fatty acid chains to animal fatty acid chains. This whole idea, this out and out attack on food, on real food, whether we're talking about the meat or just talking about them shifting us into these like growing vessels from like sci-fi movies. They're like, oh no, we don't use soil, it's just aeroponics. And it's like, oh, where do the nutrients come from? Oh, from my squirter, and like I ordered online in Amazon. And it's like, these people are so creepy, because they're literally wanting to live out a fantasy that was in a book they read, that was written by a person that was completely closed off from nature, and probably died young, probably died from something that was completely curable if they had lived a good life, if they had been in touch with nature, if they had eaten the right foods. So for me, it feels like there's a generational confusion, a generational unease and dis-ease in both the body and the mind happening all over the place. And so we really need to re-inoculate people with good food, because the microbiology in the food goes not just in the gut brains. They've discovered, Harriet Miele recently talked about one of the articles she was reading, studies she was reading, they're finding these microbes in the brain. So when we think about, how influential good food is, they're like, oh, if you taste it, you know the difference. Well, knowing just changed, didn't it? Didn't tasting and knowing change, right? Maybe this is why babies are licking everything and tasting everything, because there's a correlation between their brain and their mouth on such a deep level that only now we're really uncovering. So for me, what they're doing is doubling down on the crazy. And we have people that have taken pieces of science that are perfectly reasonable in context and taken them out of context and go, oh, and look at the number. Oh, number. And it's completely out of context. And they don't understand the way nature actually works. They don't understand the way. I mean, let's just look a little bit closer at the solutions that are proposed that they won't even look at for the whole beef thing. It's like we're all talking about no CAFOs, no nasty animal factories with the antibiotics, none of that. That's what we don't want. And they're like, oh, you don't want animals? Great, good, no animals. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the solution to some of these things, they even figured out they don't even need to move them. They just need to feed them kelp, which is, again, awful because they're not really treating these animals like they would be treated in nature, like an Alan Savory or a Greg Judy or, Joel Salatin, shifting these animals, giving them fresh pasture every morning. So they wake up, they're moving to someplace new. And every time they come back, it's better. That kind of relationship, that they probably know that they're doing the right thing. They probably feel that they're doing the right thing. So soil improvement, the whole methane belching thing, they can reduce it by over 90% with just adding kelp. And why is that? Because the minerals are there. So all we have to do is have the minerals back in the plants in the forage instead of them feeding them like the GMO corn and the capos. We just need to let them be in nature, maybe. Maybe like us, they too need to be in nature and live naturally, have naturally nutritious food. Then suddenly they don't have gas. Huh, isn't that funny? They don't have gas when they've got nutrients. So it all goes back to this basic broken misunderstanding of the world that we live in. And it goes back to, entrusting politicians with things that we all can handle on our homestead, on our home site, in our bioregion, in our community. They're always going to Frankenstein it. So yeah, and I get worked up about this because my wife's had cancer so many times. I get worked up about this because I've got boys, young boys. I get worked up about this because I can tell the difference. I'm the canary in the coal mine. I have Crohn's disease. So when I eat their food, it's like putting a firebrand down my throat and then poking it around down there. So I've known for years just from feel. And actually to speak more to this, in Missouri, when I moved out and was a spokesperson for Baker Creek and did that daily show for that 6 months, I was given forest-raised pork, as well as Dr. Zach Bush's Restore, but it was this tandem, this natural pork, real meat that I had never tasted before. The meat didn't taste like pork. It tasted like somewhere between pork and beef, but more delicious than anything I'd ever tasted meat-wise. It was acorn purely raised, lived its whole life like as if it was wild, but in a circumstance with people so that it was not stressed. It always felt like it, you know what I mean? And that's what healed me. I was 141 pounds, right? I'm 6'2". So this is the thing. I know it because I've lived it. I know they're not just idiotic. They're not just despicable. They're trying to harm people.
Yeah, and Matt,
in the name of virtue signaling. That's essentially what they're doing. And they're also screwing it up for everyone who's doing the right thing.
Yeah, so the whole green movement that's now being pushed in schools and in the youth of the world, I mean, they're being taught this globalist idea that farming and agriculture is bad for the earth, and that and even Bill Gates, the vaccine king, at Davos said that raising animals is barbaric, and we need to think more sustainably and raise meats and plant material in laboratories. What say you?
This is the guy who owns half of Monsanto.
Yeah.
This is the guy who owns half of Monsanto. This is the guy that wants to block out the sun as a solution. He is Mr. Burns. So, I mean, anything that comes out of that guy's mouth, I'm going to always be like leaning 95% against, and maybe a small smidge is maybe, but no, I have not seen anything that he said that, like, I mean, Elon Musk called him like a knucklehead last week. That's a great way to call that guy. That guy's a knucklehead, messing around with everybody's stuff, going to the governments and being like, hey, I got this thing called Common Core. I don't have standards or a curriculum mapped out or any idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to bribe you, take you out to dinner, and you're going to pass the law before standards are even created. And that's what they did with Common Core. You know, your kids, they're struggling in school maybe. I know so many people, because I was a public school teacher during this transition. I got to see under the hood and got to see that it's not based on real science. And they threw out fundamental pieces of the way that people learn.
Yeah.
Like critical thinking, like actual application and creative applications of ideas. Think about that. If you can't take an idea and put it into real life and test it out and use it and work with it and think critically and creatively about it, how can you really know it's true? Oh, you can't. And that's what they want. They want people that believe anything that they say just because they said it and they're an authoritarian, power. That's exactly what it is. So it's really about bringing back common sense and also reintroducing fundamentals in science, because like I talked about, energy being drawn down. Photosynthesis is the drawdown of energy from the sun. That's what it is. And until we recognize that, we're never going to get soil right. We're never going to get this whole like where does carbon go thing either right. We're not going to even understand that the basis of this stuff is fungi, and they exhale CO2. So it's more CO2 that they will release when we bring back living soils. And it is only through bringing back Mother Earth, the actual natural world, to suck that in and cycle it, that we will actually have a system. This whole other thing they're talking about, they're using to abuse. It's use and abuse, because they're not actually proposing doing the right thing, balancing like our soils so that our health can, because that's the focal point. It's actually our soils, not up there. Don't look up. Don't look up there. Look at the soils around you. Look at the animals, the plants, and you're like, wait a second. It's nothing but GMO corn, my entire state. How does Mother Nature feel about that? Do you get Shinrin Yoku walking through a cornfield of GMO with the pesticides spraying all over you? No, no. That's why doctors in Iowa have to create little private forests so that their patients can go in them to heal, because there's no place in nature anymore for them to go. It's these fundamentals, it's these basics that we don't get, that will bite us if we don't wrestle this control from madmen's hand, madmen and mad women's hands.
Brilliant.
What say you?
I'd say that's brilliant and well said. And I'm sure those out there listening appreciate your words. Now let's, as we end up tonight, let's talk about some positive things. There is a way to fight back from this insanity, and that's doing what you and I are doing, and that's basically opting out from the insanity and connecting yourself back into the biodiversity cycle through permaculture. And walk us through a little bit about your regenerative 16-week in-depth course.
Yeah, no problem. I can totally talk about that. I am flipping it Most people are put the Q&As near the end so they get the questions out of the way. I'm going to do a webinar series up front where I'm just going to be like, ask me anything. And I'll have lectures, but they're more primers that will literally spark your mind to ask fundamental questions that will change the way you see the world around you. Just like I said, that there is a bioelectric. We measure EH, redox potential, in millivolts. So that means millivolts is in direct relation to oxygen. Our world is deeply connected and much more interesting than we've been led to believe. So connecting these things, making it, again, so it's pragmatic, so it's actionable, and also visual. So we can like walk outside, we can tell which plants are in good soils and which plants are suffering and why. So it's an incredible journey to get through all that information. So we're going to be doing 16 weeks. We're going to be going step by step. I'm going to be recording the audiobook to accompany this so that you can read, but you can also listen along while you're doing your work, maybe to washing the dishes, maybe cooking dinner, but getting all the information in there so that we all can get through the science, how soils were formed, how our understanding of soil has evolved over time, because it's there's been glimmers of real insight, but on the whole, we've misunderstood it entirely. And now we have the opportunity to not just know what to do, but to walk through all the different examples of people who have been doing it right and, showcasing their methods like Korean natural farming or Dr. Lane Ingham, but walk through with the science and the metrics and be able to understand directly why that works and why that also works and why if we did this, because it opens up to improvisation, opens up to adaptation. So we're going to be going to sites all over America. We're going on a tour. I mean, if things get really crazy, we might have to like limit the tour or pause the tour or something. I don't know. I know that like, certain political people like to lock things down and put passports on things, right? But my plan is to my plan is to have a trailer to travel the U.S. to film all the places that I can reach that are the best examples in soil. So I'm talking about going to the rhizophagy expert, Dr. James White. He's doing new work with roots that have never been done before, focusing on nitrogen. Going to Michael Phillips, the holistic orchardist, the mycorrhizal planet author, one of the greatest minds in our country for perennial growing. I'm going to be visiting John Kemp, the leading mind in regenerative agricultural in practice in America, the guy who has been able to correlate and understand tens of thousands of mineral versus plant sap analysis, which is the new test, because the plant sap analysis reveals stuff that the soil test can't even show. The microbes are releasing it, but the soil test can't show it. So all those people, and then all up and down the coast, I'm visiting composting operations. I'm tagging along with consultations so that we can see from the garden to the vineyard to the orchard to the farm. And I mean like full-on farm, like a cotton farm or like a, you know what I mean? Being able to regenerate their soil so their soil gets better every single year. That soil organic matter, which is carbon, that black color in our soil, increasing that richness. And the best way that comes is through plant photosynthesis. Adding compost helps, no doubt, but it's nothing like Mother Nature's methods. Nothing is. And so we'll learn about all that. We're going to dive into all of the science. We're going to visit everyone. We're going to be able to see with the lens of best practices. And then we're going to be able to design our own soil management plans. I'm going to go over it with you. You're going to get your certification, and you're going to be able to just show people what you're doing, teach people about it. It's going to be incredible. So that's the course, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I've never gone to this depth in a course. I've done some traveling, but never the whole U.S. I'm going to be visiting Ray Archuleta. I'm going to be visiting so many different people. So it's in gathering all those different perspectives, distilling for truth, because, like you said, there's a lot of confusion out there, right? We need to distill for that truth, triangulate for that truth, right? That we will arrive at that place that gives us the most empowerment and the ability to have pivot power, to have leverage in our relationship with the world around us. And that really only comes with understanding nature. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to follow along this, and we're going to go see it in the world.
That sounds awesome. Now, how do people get involved if they want to get involved in the 16-week course and they didn't involved through the Kickstarter? Is it still open?
Yeah, well, there's signups now. You can go to regenerativesoilscience.com. Don't put the www thing, just put regenerativesoilscience.com in there. And it'll take you to a webpage with a course sign up for this new course, as well as the reviews for the book, as well as a free webinar. So I break this all down, like the new paradigm shift, into like with slides and visuals and animations and a 20-minute talk. So you can dive into that there. It's free for you to dive into and just get acquainted with. And then, yeah, in July, we're going to have a 4-week series of webinars, get everyone's questions out of the way, get all settled in. And at the end of July, we're going to start a 16-week process in which we're going to go through everything in soil, micro to macro, from the beginning to the end in my book. And we're going to dial in your understanding, give you the keys to develop regenerative soil in any context, any climate. It's going to be amazing.
That sounds awesome. Guys, if you're out there, get the book, Regenerative Soil, The Science and Solutions, $75 hardcover on Amazon. Check out thepermaculturestudent.com. And Matt, that website, will have a link below, is regenerativesoilscience.com, correct?
Yeah, just no www. It's like http:// and then regenerativesoilscience.com.
Awesome.
And I can give you another link if that one's crazy.
Perfect. We appreciate you. You are awesome. Your book is awesome. I'm sure the course is going to be awesome. And if you're coming through the Four Corners region, stop by and we'll do a podcast or something. It'd be awesome. Yeah, give us some final words of wisdom or advice to motivate people to buy your book and to join this course.
If you want to understand how to have the best soil, which means the best food, the best plants, and our best health, then this is the course for you, because this goes through the science of it all in a way that's understandable. I'm a former high school teacher. I break it down to that level so that's something that everyone can understand and then go and do, because everyone deserves to have the ability to have the best food possible, to grow the best food possible, because it's not rocket science. It's stuff that we all were doing and we all can do in many ways. And we just lost our way. We listened to Better Living Through Chemistry. We listened to politicians. We listened to the wrong people. And we got off track. And now it's about getting back on track with common sense, with science you can prove to yourself, that you can test for, that will change your life, that will launch you into a business, launch you into another level of your business. It's that powerful. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, like, this is a totally new level. I can help people at a commercial level. I can help farmers with thousands of acres. I can help, help the people who are coming out from the universities with their ag degrees that are going to poison the world potentially. I can help them get off that track and understand through the same language of chemistry how to do it right, how to live a life of integrity, knowing that you're doing the right thing. And that's the invitation to everyone, is let's do the right thing. Let's Let's make the world a better place and have it taste good at the same time.
That well, sounds like an awesome deal. Let's do the right thing, folks. Get the book. Join the course if you want to know how to make the best soil on the planet. Also, come over to Matt Powers' YouTube channel, The Permaculture Student, and subscribe there. All the links will be below. It's been a pleasure, Matt, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Diamond.
We love you. Be safe.